Number 3, I'm just going to warn you guys, is a long one. I have a lot to say on this episode because, first off, I love this episode and it's fucking awesome. Also, it's one of the more recent episodes, so it's more fresh in my mind, and also this is when I take notes on all the episodes to record my reactions, and when I started out, I didn't record as in-depth reactions, so it was a little harder to recall what I thought of the episode at the time, but this one I took pretty vivid notes, so get ready for a long video. So as I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite ongoing stories throughout the Clone Wars was the story of Darth Maul and his brother Savage Opress. And Season 4, they masterfully brought back Maul. They did a really nice job bringing him back. They did a really awesome arc and a really great finale to the season. But while I enjoyed it, it didn't blow me away. I mean, it was cool that they brought him back, but nothing really awesome happened with it. And then the Season 5 arc came along, which did the Red Wedding episode before the Red Wedding episode ever happened. I'm serious, this episode actually came out like before the infamous Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones. And this arc was really cool. It not only it showed how great of a villain Maul is, not only physically, but intellectually. His manipulation of various characters to rise to power, to create a criminal empire, take over Mandalore, all of it was fucking brilliant. And when the episode ended, and when when the third episode, the Maul arc ended with Pre Vizsla dead, a few rebellious Mandalorians, members of Death Watch on the run, and Maul in power, I'm like, holy shit, they just made an episode where the bad guys won. I'm like, damn, how are they going to top that? And then this, as if the last episode wasn't crazy, groundbreaking, and game-changing enough, this episode came along. I am talking about the episode Lawless, if you haven't figured out already. And I know I shouldn't have to say this, but spoilers, you do not want this episode ruined for you if you haven't seen it for some reason. This is the episode where a bunch of shit goes down. Darth Maul uses Duchess Satine to lure Obi-Wan to Mandalore, knowing perfectly well that he'll have to come alone since Mandalore is neutral. He comes, Maul captures him, and then makes him sit there and watch as he executes Duchess Satine, which marks the second time Obi-Wan has lost someone close to him while helplessly watching Maul murder someone close to him. And then Maul escapes with the help of Bo-Katan, but meanwhile the Emperor comes. We have an awesome lightsaber fight. Savage dies and Maul gets captured for other plans, which unfortunately we don't get to know about because the show got canceled, but thank goodness we have the comics. So, if you've seen the episode, you should be able to figure out pretty quickly why I love it. But I'm going to go and just say it anyway. First off, this was a big episode. I mean, one thing, I've said this before in an earlier vlog, but I love on the Clone Wars when they just throw stuff out there. They just are thinking, what can we do to just throw a wrench, really shake things up, and shake up the foundation of the show. And this Maul arc was just a giant game changer. I mean, you had Maul rising, building this giant criminal empire, becoming a really major faction in the Clone Wars. You had not one, not two, but 3 major character deaths in this arc, 2 of which occurred in the same episode. Massive all-out war. Factions rose, factions fell. It was just such a big episode. Like, I mean, it wasn't enough that we had to watch Pre Vizsla get his head chopped off by Maul in the last episode. But then we have to watch Duchess Satine get stabbed by Maul and the death of Savage Opress. And all of these deaths work. I mean, Pre Vizsla's death, I mean, he'd been around for a while, and considering how dark the Maul arc was, it only made sense for Pre Vizsla to die. But let's just focus on the 2 deaths that occurred in the Lawless arc. Satine's death worked. I mean, for one thing, Duchess Satine is a major character. I mean, she's the love interest to Obi-Wan. It would feel really weird if It's weird that she wasn't mentioned in Revenge of the Sith, so you need to get rid of her somehow, and this was a pretty fitting way to get rid of her. I mean, Maul's using her as a tool of revenge against Obi-Wan. It's like he's going to break Obi-Wan and make him live his life in despair for the rest of his life. And once again, we have Obi-Wan sitting there helplessly watching one of his friends get killed, and I just realized I said that earlier. And it's great because it shows the contrast between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and that both of these characters have some sort of relationship with someone of high political stature. Anakin, of course, being in love with the senator and former Queen of Naboo, and Obi-Wan being in having some sort of relationship with the ruler of Mandalore. But the difference is, whereas Anakin lets his feelings guide his actions, Obi-Wan has to keep them in check. Like, he never embraces his feelings. Like, when Duchess Satine dies, like, you can see not only the sadness on Obi-Wan, but you can kind of see him holding back. Like, he wants to lash out at Maul, and if it were Anakin, he probably would, but I just realized we haven't seen Anakin fighting Darth Maul, and try to ignore the freeze. I'm too far in to fix this. Just think of his bias. We never saw Anakin and Maul fight. I wonder if they had plans to do that. Or Ahsoka and Maul. But I digress. So, it was a really powerful moment. Savage Opress, someone needed to die in the lightsaber fight that occurred in this episode. And yeah, it had to be Savage. I mean, you just brought Maul back. You're not going to kill him. But I think the best part of this episode was just seeing Palpatine in the flesh. Now, and by Palpatine, I mean the Emperor. Now, we had seen the Emperor before on the show, but we've always seen him through a hologram. We've never seen him physically in person. This was the first time. And interestingly enough, Ian Abercrombie, who's the voice of Emperor Palpatine on the show, not Emperor Palpatine, Palpatine. This was his final time recording his lines for Palpatine. And it's a very fitting final episode because it's his best performance. He is clearly having a blast. I love the way he delivers all of his lines. And again, very fortunately record that this was his final episode because it's such a great Palpatine episode and a great performance. I mean, like when you're cut to his office and you see Palpatine meditating, you're like, oh no, what's going on? And then you see the shuttle and you hear the Emperor theme and you're like, oh shit. And this is awesome for various reasons. Number one, it's Emperor Palpatine. But most importantly, they're very smart about how they use Palpatine here. For one thing, the fact that they waited until Season 5 to bring out Palpatine. I thought that was smart. I mean, like, if you brought him out too early, you wouldn't have anywhere to go. It would be like in Star Wars Rebels if they have Vader show up in the first season. It's like, you're not going to have any... You're using up a card way too quickly. But this also does two things. Number one, it's like, if Palpatine is coming here to deal with the issue himself rather than sending Dooku or Grievous to deal with it, it must be serious. I mean, because in the past he's always used people to accomplish what he wanted. But here he's coming to deal with it himself, which establishes how big of a threat Maul is. I mean, like, and he is a threat. I mean, we've seen him just constantly get his way, killing people, rising to power. He's just becoming such a major faction. So it really helps to emphasize just how powerful Maul is. And this also feels like an issue where Palpatine would need to arrive. Like, it doesn't feel like they're just putting the Emperor in here because they want to. They're putting him in here because it makes sense. And I love that. Like, it's both giving the fans what they want, but making it work and not feel shoehorned. And I think it's a great feat. And again, Palpatine's presence doesn't feel like shoehorning. It's emphasizing just how powerful and dangerous Maul was. And what a lightsaber fight we got in this episode. I mean, this was probably hands down one of the best, if not the best. This was the best lightsaber fight in the show. I mean, the last episode, the fight between Maul and Pre Vizsla, that was a really cool fight. It was like the first really awesome fight on the show. It was fast-paced, exciting, and as opposed to earlier fights, which were stiff. And also, this one went on for a couple minutes, whereas others just last maybe a minute. So it's cool. And this one just upped it. I mean, Filoni said, like, the fight between Maul and Pre Vizsla is the best lightsaber fight in the show until next episode. And he wasn't kidding. This was a fucking awesome lightsaber fight. Really fast-paced and exciting. The fact that it's between these three characters is fucking awesome. Palpatine just using two lightsabers, awesome. And the fight also really just reflects the characters. I mean, you have Palpatine, who he very much seems to be toying with the characters. Like, when Savage knocks Palpatine off the balcony and you think he's going to fall, but not only does he land on his feet, but he uses the Force to drag Savage and Maul down with him. And also, when Savage is trying to swing his lightsaber at Palpatine, he's just casually stepping backwards and dodging out of the way. Plus, you have Savage and Maul's various fighting tactics. Maul's is pretty basic, standard attacks, but Savage is more heavy. Like, he's very slow, but he's dealing very strong and powerful attacks that if he hit Palpatine, they could really hurt. And I love how the fight keeps working its way down, and each time it gets more intense. Like, especially the final part where Maul's making a final stand, he's lashing out at Sidious because he just killed Savage. It's really cool. And it's very fitting the way he loses Savage, because he loses Savage the same way Obi-Wan lost Qui-Gon and Satine. So I guess this is sort of like Maul getting punished for what he did, and it's very fitting. But as awesome as this arc is, it does leave a lot of stuff unanswered. Like, for one thing, it's very frustrating that, and a lot of this unanswered stuff is a result of Disney canceling the Clone Wars. For one thing, what happens to Maul? It's like so frustrating when this arc ends and you want to know what happens next to Maul, and you think, oh man, I can't wait until next season. Then you learn the show's canceled, and you're like, oh man. But there is a comic book that does explain everything. The Son of Dathomir, please read it. It is a really good read. I mean, it sucks that it wasn't animated, but it's still really good. Also, what's going to happen to Mandalore? I mean, it's still under the control of Death Watch. And what about Bo-Katan? I mean, there were clear plans for her, especially given that they revealed that she's Satine's sister. Where were they going with that? And I know there was an arc planned for her and Ahsoka later down the road, but unfortunately we're not going to get to see this. So, to wrap things up, this was an awesome game-changer episode. When I think of examples of why I love the show, this episode comes up a lot. Because it was a really entertaining episode start to finish. Culminating. The arc in general was awesome, and it ended in this really cool episode. That this is one of the reasons why I get upset when the show is canceled, because this is an awesome episode, and I wanted to see more episodes this awesome. I've seen this episode multiple times. I've seen... Hey, it's Unfreeze cool. I've watched this episode more times than I can count. I feel like every day I watch the fight between Maul, Savage, and Sidious. Like, I mean, Season 5, everything up here till this point was either good or okay. But this arc and the one that follows it just blow the others away. Like, I don't even think about the other arcs anymore. I just think about this arc and the one that follows, because that's how awesome they are. In fact, these arcs are so awesome, and I really love how they were put at the end of Season 5, because of it, I just walk away thinking how awesome Season 5 was, and I completely forget how I wasn't too big on the previous arcs. And I feel like if they had put the Maul and Yoda arcs at the end of Season 6, I probably would have walked away thinking Season 6 was awesome. And that's all I have to say on Lawless. Please join me next time when I'm going to do number 2, and then later tomorrow I'm going to do honorable mentions and my favorite episode of the Clone Wars ever. So you're definitely going to want to stick around there. One is just pure... They're both pure awesomeness. One is really strange, and the other is not only my favorite Clone Wars episode, but my favorite moment from the prequels in general. So, you can take your guesses now. What's my number 2, what's my number 1, but you'll have to wait until next time. So until then, this is JStars360, signing out.